External anatomy of the chicken. Looking at the head of the chicken, we can see that there is a structure on top of the head called a comb and a structure below the head called a wattle. These are both ornamental structures whose size and color are determined in part by sexual hormones. The comb can come in a variety of shapes across avian species. The earlobe is a circular patch of skin located just below the opening of the ear. The color of the egg is highly associated with the color of the earlobe. Here, you can see the opening of the ear after the feathers have been trimmed. There are two major types of feathers, the contour feathers and the down feathers. Contour feathers are stiff, making up the wing feathers as well as covering most of the body. They are arranged in an overlapping fashion that helps keep the bird insulated and shielded from rain. Down feathers are soft and fluffy. They make up the undercoat, which helps keep the chicken warm. The oral cavity of the chicken contains no teeth or lips. The beak acts as the instrument of prehension, grasping and holding food. The tongue is triangular in shape and contains only a few taste buds located in the caudal region. The choanal cleft is an opening between the nasal and oral cavity, which results from the incomplete formation of the palate. The uropygial gland is a bilobed sebaceous gland that secretes oil. It is located dorsally at the base of the tail. During preening behavior, the chicken spreads oil from the gland over its entire coat, helping to waterproof the feathers and protect from parasites. Muscular anatomy. The muscles of the wing include the biceps brachii, triceps brachii, and deltoideus muscles. Contraction of the biceps brachii muscle causes the wing to flex. Contraction of the triceps brachii muscle causes the forearm to extend as well as flex the shoulder. The deltoideus muscle originates at the proximal clavicle and inserts at the deltoid tuberosity of the proximal humerus. It is responsible for flexing the shoulder and rotating the wing outwards. The brachial vein can be identified externally. It is a common location for blood draws. The muscles of the breast include the superficial pectoral and supracoracoideus muscles. The superficial pectoral muscle, also known as pectoralis major, is the largest muscle of the body. It accounts for the downward force of the wing during flight. The supracoracoideus muscle, also known as pectoralis minor, is responsible for elevating the wing during flight. The supracoracoideus muscle is attached to a tendon that runs along the medial surface of the coracoid bone, passing through an opening formed by the coracoid, scapula, and humeral bones, then inserts at the dorsal surface of the humerus. This tendon allows the muscle to act as a natural pulley system. The muscles of the lower leg include the iliotibialis, sartorius, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, tibialis anterior, gastrocnemius, adductor longus, ambiens, and quadriceps femoris muscles. The iliotibialis muscle, also known as the gluteus maximus, is a sheet-like muscle that covers the thigh. When it contracts, it flexes the hip and extends the knee and lower leg. The sartorius muscle is a long, thin band of muscle that lies on the anterior border of the thigh. It is responsible for flexing the hip and extending the knee. The semitendinosus muscle contracts to extend the thigh. The tibialis anterior muscle flexes the tarso-metatarsus forward. The gastrocnemius muscle is responsible for flexing the knee and extending the foot. The semimembranosus muscle extends the thigh and flexes the knee. The adductor longus muscle adducts and extends the thigh. The ambiens muscle originates on the ilium and pubis and inserts on the proximal tibiotarsus. The quadriceps femoris muscle contracts to extend the thigh.
A hen is reproductively mature at around 5 months of age. In contrast to many animal species, the hen's reproductive system is functionally unilateral and confined to the left side of the hen body. The female chicken reproductive system is composed of an ovary and an oviduct. The ovary is responsible for only yolk formation, while the oviduct comprises multiple systems and designates the finishing processes of the egg. The ovary of the hen is composed of numerous follicles. Each follicle contains an oocyte, which is an immature egg cell of the ovary. There is a presence of ovarian follicular hierarchy, which is denoted by the size of each follicle. The F1 follicle, the largest, is followed by the F2, the F3, and so on. The F1 is the closest to ovulation. Over time, the smaller yellow follicles, followed by the white follicles, will replace the larger, and the process will continue throughout the reproductive cycle. When a yolk is fully developed, like F1, its follicle will burst and move into the first part of the oviduct, known as the infundibulum. This process is known as ovulation. The infundibulum, Latin for funnel, is the proximal opening of the oviduct. This thin-walled, funnel-shaped segment, located in the abdominal region, is responsible for engulfing the follicles after ovulation. It is the site of fertilization for the yolk, provided sperm is present, and typically takes only about 15 minutes. Following fertilization, the fertilized egg enters into the magnum. The magnum, Latin for large, is the glandular region of the oviduct where most of the secreted albumin, a viscous substance we know as egg white, is added. The magnum is caudal to the infundibulum and is the longest section of the reproductive tract. The process of adding the albumin requires approximately 2 hours. From the magnum, the egg passes directly into the isthmus. The job of the isthmus is shell membrane formation, where 2 shell membranes, an inner and an outer, are formed. All in all, shell membrane production takes about 75 minutes. Proteins are secreted by the glands of the isthmus and will act on the albumin to aid in calcification of the shell. Additional albumin is also produced in the isthmus. Upon completion of this process, the egg will move to the shell gland. The shell gland, also known as the uterus, makes the hard calcareous shell of the egg, which means that the shell is composed mainly of calcium carbonate. It takes about 20 hours for the eggshell to form. Once this process is complete, the shell gland will push the egg into the vagina. The vagina, which is located between the shell gland and cloaca, is muscular and helps push the egg into the cloaca. Its tubular glands also function as a secondary storage area for sperm. Once the egg is pushed from the vagina, it enters the cloaca, which is an external terminal region of the hen's reproductive tract. It is from the cloaca that the egg is discharged. The cloaca also is the opening where urates and feces are excreted in the hen.
The digestive system, also called the digestive tract, consists of a muscular tube lined with mucous membrane that is continuous with the external skin at the mouth and at the anus. Its primary functions are prehension, mastication, digestion, absorption of food, and elimination of solid waste. In chickens, the overall passage of food ranges from 2 to 24 hours, and it is fastest in growing and laying chickens. The mouth is used primarily for holding, grinding, and the mixing of food with saliva, but may also be used to manipulate the environment through the grasping of objects, and also can be used as a defensive and offensive weapon. However, a chicken's mouth has no lips and no teeth. Food is taken in by the beak, which is used for pecking food. The beak for a chicken is used to crush, tear, or hold food. A small bit of saliva and digestive enzymes are added as food moves from the mouth into the esophagus. The tongue consists of a massive muscle covered by the mucous membrane. The tongue of the chicken is narrow and often triangular, with very few taste buds. However, it has numerous touch receptors. Most birds distinguish food by the feel of it. Very few muscles are found in the tongue of the chicken. Chickens also swallow food with the help of their tongue. The esophagus is an organ which consists of a fibromuscular tube. It carries food from the chicken's beak to the crop. From the esophagus, food moves to the crop, which is an expandable storage compartment located at the base of a chicken's neck, where it can remain for up to 12 hours. This capacity enables the bird to take its food as meals at time intervals, but permits continuous digestion. For chickens, the proventriculus, also known as the glandular stomach, is the true stomach and is small and tubular. In the proventriculus is where digestion occurs with the addition of hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. Also known as the ventriculus, the gizzard is a muscular organ that is a part of the stomach. With a strong contraction of muscles in the presence of grit, it grinds grains and fiber into smaller, more digestible particles. It also has a thick muscular wall with a sandpaper-like inner surface. The small intestine begins at the exit from the gizzard and ends at the junction of the small intestine, ceca, and colon. Its jejunum and ileum are posterior to the duodenum. The mesentery fixes the small intestine to the dorsal-abdominal wall and supports the superior and inferior mesenteric arteries and veins within the tissue. Much of the digestion of food and all of the absorption of all the nutrients takes place in the small intestine. The pancreas is located within the duodenal loop of the small intestine. The ducts are normally hidden by the tissue. The bile ducts enter the duodenum near the pancreas. The intestinal ceca are blind pouches along the lower intestinal tract, where bacteria help break down undigested food. The ceca empty their contents a couple times a day. The liver is a four-lobed gland in the abdomen. A coronary ligament attaches from the liver to the pericardium, and the falciform ligament fixes the ventral surface of the liver to the central body wall. The gallbladder lies on the right lobe beneath the spleen. It is a small green organ where bile is stored before it is released into the small intestine. The large intestine is very short and runs in nearly a straight line below the vertebrae and ends at the cloaca. When food moves to the large intestine, it absorbs water and dries out indigestible food. Since chickens do not have a bladder, their urinary system waste produced by the kidneys is simply dumped in with the digestive waste at the end of the digestive system, at the cloaca, or vent. This is why normal chicken droppings contain white urates mixed together with darker digested material.
A chicken's respiratory system starts working as soon as the chicken takes a breath of air. The air will go through the glottis, which is the opening of the trachea. The epiglottis is the flap of skin that covers the glottis. It closes when the bird swallows food, so that the food will pass through the esophagus. But when the bird breathes in air, the epiglottis opens, and the air can pass through the glottis and down the trachea. The trachea runs ventral to the esophagus, but don't worry. You can distinguish the trachea from the esophagus by looking for the visible rings of hyaline cartilage that run along the trachea. At the base of the trachea, the tube splits into two smaller tubes called bronchi, with one bronchus going towards each lung. However, at the base, you will also find the syrinx. The syrinx is a bird's vocal organ. A combination of vibrations and air that passes through the syrinx allow the bird to make sounds and even mimic human speech. Now the air goes into the chicken's lungs through the bronchi. Unlike human lungs, chicken lungs have 9 air sacs.
Birds have these air sacs because, unlike mammals, their lungs are small and do not expand. To compensate for these, chickens have these balloon-like air sacs, which let air in and out as they expand and compress. Birds also have an incomplete diaphragm. Instead, birds will move their rib cage and sternum to pull air into the lungs and push it back out. This very efficient system of breathing also acts as the cooling system for birds, since they do not sweat. The urogenital system is responsible for waste removal and a balance of fluids in the body. Unlike mammals, most species of birds do not have a bladder. This is because birds do not pass their nitrogenous waste as urea. Instead, they pass it as urites, which are insoluble. Since urites do not require much water for the bird to excrete, there is no need for a urinary bladder. The main organ involved in the urogenital system is the kidney. Chickens have two 3-lobed kidneys found near the ileum and pelvis. The kidneys filter waste products and toxins out of the blood. In addition, the kidneys also regulate the balance of water, salts, and nutrients in the body. Each kidney is attached to a ureter, a thin tube that urites pass through. The area in which the ureter attaches to the kidney is called the renal hilus. In mammals, the ureter leads to the urinary bladder. However, in birds, the ureter leads straight to the chicken's cloaca, where the waste products are then excreted. The circulatory system. The heart in a bird is very efficient, and a chicken's heart beats about 200 to 300 beats per minute. The entire heart is enclosed in a pericardial sac, which is a very thin membrane that holds the fluid within the heart. Like humans, birds have 4-chambered hearts, consisting of the right atrium, right ventricle, and left atrium. Blood is pumped out of the heart and to other parts of the body via arteries. One such artery is the brachiocephalic artery that takes blood to the organism's head, neck, and right arm. Another example of arteries are the carotid arteries. The left and right carotid arteries send oxygenated blood to the head and neck exclusively. The aorta is the primary artery that sends blood out from the heart. The aorta is curved in what is known as the aortic arch. The two subclavian arteries get blood from the aortic arch and supply blood to both arms. Blood that lacks oxygen is sent back to the heart via veins, which are much thinner than the well-muscled arteries. The hepatic portal vein sends blood from the spleen and intestines to the liver, because the blood from the intestines is filled with nutrients that have been taken from whatever food is in the intestines.